Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 House elections and talking about the overall results that I'm expecting if the election was held today. I know I don't have an overall House of Representatives map because I'm not going to really have a district by district prediction until we get on later down the primary season, because there are still some states outstanding, but we still have a very general idea of who the candidates are going to be for a number of competitive districts, and we also have a very large number of retirements amongst the Republican Party. Not as many as 2018 by far, but there are still some Republicans retiring, and we also have to discuss the impact of a presidential election year on the House of Representatives. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the generic ballot and talk about what that actually means for both parties, because a lot is going to be shifting nationwide. So as you can see right now, the Democratic Party has 48.7% of the vote nationwide, which based off the Real Clear Politics average is around the same what they give them. It's just a percentage point lower, and for the GOP, they have around a percentage point lower as well. So when we're looking at the 538 numbers, these are adjusted. The Democratic Party has a 7.8% lead nationwide, according to Real Clear Politics. Sorry, this is actually the wrong numbers. I don't know why I opened this one. My bad. Let's go ahead and go to generic ballot 2020. They put them actually, the Democrats are lower, so 6.6%. I knew it was wrong because I know they did not lead and there's no actual results yet. But 538 does adjust for the polling errors, and I do think that it should be, I don't know why it's trying to translate this page. It should give us a general idea of what to expect for the 2020 election. So in 2018, the Democratic Party led by 7.3% nationwide, and according to Real Clear Politics, was 8% nationwide. So the Democratic Party currently leads by 7.8%. So if we're seeing anywhere similar to what the results were in 2018, the numbers are starting to align up to be very similar. In 2018, when the Democrats led by 8% nationwide, they ended up winning the popular vote by actually 8.4%. So they did outperform their margin, and they picked up a total of 41 seats. The Republican Party became the minority overnight. So it was very similar to what we saw in 2010 with the Democratic Party. So, with the Democratic Party becoming in the minority. In 2016, we're just going to go ahead and hit 2014 and 2012 because we need to discuss the midterm versus presidential election. And typically when there's an incumbent office holder, the opposition party gains seats in the midterm elections, and that happened in 2014, and it also did happen in 2012. But in 2014, the Republican Party gained numerous seats in the Senate, very similar to what happened in the House in 2010. But in 2016, the Democratic Party had the RCP average by 0.6%. This was likely just as a result of Hillary Clinton's very drastic leads throughout the entire campaign season, to a point where the Democrats actually only peaked by 6% nationwide. Even though Hillary Clinton had points in time where she was leading by 16%, or 12% nationwide, the Democratic Party only peaked at 6.2% in terms of the generic ballot. So it started to pose questions whether or not the Democratic Party could win back the House, but we do know that with a 0.6% margin, the Democratic Party only gained 6 seats. In fact, the Republicans actually won the generic ballot by 1.1%, so they actually outperformed Donald Trump on the national level, but obviously it drastically changed 2 years after. So the Republican Party stayed in the majority, and they ended up losing 6 seats, with the Democrats ahead by 0.6%. So it was pretty reflective. In 2014, the Republican Party gained 13 seats. Despite the Democratic Party going back and forth leading, really, there was never really a time period where the Democratic Party should have been able to win back the House during this midterm year, just more so damage control. 2014 was also a midterm year, but we're going to focus a little bit more on 2012. So the Republican Party led by 0.2% in the last generic ballot poll. That comes as a fact that looking at the overall generic ballot, the Republican Party, pretty much was back and forth with the Democratic Party. The 2012 election was insanely close. We really didn't know who was going to win on Election Day. Mitt Romney was leading Barack Obama in ending polling data, so that could account for the sudden Republican spike. But the Democratic Party gained 8 seats, and they won the popular vote by 1.2%. So based off the 2018 numbers, the numbers do pretty much reflect the amount of pickups that the Democratic Party had. When we're talking about 2020, I'm not going to say that the Democratic Party is somehow going to gain 41 seats. Just because they have the same popular vote expectant margin for 2020, it does not mean that they are going to even gain seats. when we're looking at the landscape for the House of Representatives, it's probably just going to fluctuate a tad bit. Taking a look at where it is right now, even though there is that California 25th race that the Republican Party won, that was probably one of the worst showings the Democratic Party has had in a very long time in a special election. So that's honestly, I don't think will be super reflective of the 2020 races. There were numerous special elections that a lot of Republicans downplayed in 2017, 2018, 2019 that could have said, this is horrible news for President Trump. And you can't just say one special election was bad news for President Trump, but it was Doug Jones. It was Pennsylvania's 18th district. It was the House elections. It was numerous other special elections. It was the Wisconsin Supreme Court election that are starting to show the tides are turning against President Trump. And now I understand that things were said in 2010, 2011, but the turnout levels were a lot higher in 2018 than they were in 2014 or 2010. The Republican Party, again, has never turned out numbers like this in modern political history, ever. The Democratic Party does amazing with the turnout game when they do it right. In 2018, they rivaled presidential election turnout. We saw a total of 60 million votes for the Democratic Party in 2018. If you go back to 2016, they only got 61 million votes in a presidential election year. Turnout was only 4% lower than where it was in 2016. So the Democratic Party did very well in terms of turning out voters. In 2020, taking a look at the House elections, it's going to be pretty solid for the Democratic Party, to be completely honest. I really, realistically, just don't see a pathway for the Republican Party as we proceed through the 2020 general election. When we're looking at, pathway for the Republican Party in the 2020 House elections. When we're looking at the general election, but disregard this RCP map, we know some states are probably going to end up flipping to Vice President Biden. Whether that means he's going to win the election or not is all up to the American voters to decide. But if he does flip some states, it is possible there is an increased amount of Democratic voters, even compared to 2018. When we're looking at the overall House of Representatives map that we're working with, again, it's the same exact landscape from 2018. Nothing's really changed except for some redistricts in the state of North Carolina and previous ones in Pennsylvania before the 2018 midterms, but generally we're working with the same amounts. And also, the Democratic Party is poised to gain 2 seats in the North Carolina House of Representatives races just because of the redistricting. So they're already starting off with 2 seats possibly gaining. And in fact, based off the Cook Political Report and based off the Real Clear Politics average, the Republican Party doesn't really have a pathway to the majority. RCP, which is very conservative in terms of giving safe and likely and lean characterizations to both parties, they do give the Democratic Party a total of 213 seats. The Cook Political Report, however, gives the Democratic Party slightly over 218 seats, but again, still giving them the overall majority, and meaning that the Republican Party could end up winning every single toss-up race, according to the Cook Report, and lose the House of Representatives. And it is not likely that with these numbers that we're seeing, the Republican Party does, in fact, gain numerous seats. In presidential elections, as you've seen, the Democratic Party, while maybe losing the presidential election for the case of 2016, gains seats in the Senate and the House of Representatives, and it looks like the Democrats are going to gain the Senate. And if they do win the presidential election, you can say that's going to be even worse news for Republicans in the House. The state of the House right now, if the election was held today, would be pretty much the same exact thing we're seeing. The Democratic Party would likely hold on to around 235 seats from 2018, and the Republican Party would maybe not even break through 200, to be completely honest. So looking at the numbers, if the Democrats do even have any type of result based off today's state of the country, they would gain seats. And I understand that some people may think, oh, there's a Republican wave. But again, President Trump is at a very low point. The Republican Party is at a very low point, whether that's the Senate, whether that's the House, whether that's governor elections, whether that's especially the presidential elections. It's going to get a lot more difficult for the Republican Party to dig themselves out of a hole that the president has single-handedly dug for them. The Republican Party, again, Mitch McConnell said he wasn't going to comment on President Trump's comments. When stuff like that happens and he's not vehemently defending him, you know that they know he shouldn't have said the things that he said, because it doesn't necessarily it's not helpful to him in any way in terms of the overall election. There was some discussion about President Trump doing these things in order to outrage the senior base and bring out more white voters. But when you're talking about a very angered African-American electorate that was very upset in 2018, and they did come out in almost full force, similar to the 2012 and 2008 turnout levels, I mean, it's very good news for the Democratic Party as they go into this election. So I will say that the Democratic Party, they do need to play their cards right. They do need to focus on down ballot races as much as they do on the presidential elections. But I do think Nancy Pelosi will still be Speaker in a year from now. And I do think that the Democratic Party is, if anything, going to gain seats in the House of Representatives as it stands today. The Republican Party definitely has a number of opportunities to pick up seats, but with numerous Republican retirements, they're going to be trying to field candidates, and they're going to be trying to focus on districts. That's absolutely insane that Steve King just got primaried, but that was yesterday's numbers. Besides that, the Republican Party is probably going to end up having to do damage control. If they lose the presidential election, they turn to the Senate. They're expected to lose Senate seats there. If they turn to the House, they could possibly lose House seats there. And they turn to the governorship, and it looks like the numbers are going to stay the exact same. So it really all depends. But I will say that the Republican Party is probably at a very low point in the country right now, and the Democratic Party is definitely riding high. And the House of Representatives results could very well reflect that if it continues through Election Day. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all later today with my gubernatorial projection.